I moved in with my aunt to escape my lonely childhood, only to discover her son was a monster who controlled the entire house through fear. I thought getting him arrested would save us. I was wrong. Some people aren't meant for parenthood. My parents were living proof. At 9 years old, I was hunched over the toilet, stomach heaving, begging for medicine between violent spasms. Mom's response? She pulled up a breathing exercise on YouTube. Remember to let your diaphragm fully expand, she instructed from the doorway, as if mindfulness could cure the flu. Dad was never even home to notice. By 15, I had transformed myself into a walking billboard for teenage rebellion. Black clothes, darker makeup, the whole emo aesthetic. But beneath the carefully crafted exterior wasn't anger. It was emptiness. As an only child with 0 friends, loneliness had become my constant companion. When I wasn't drowning it out with deafening music through my headphones or finding solace in my cat's indifferent affection, the isolation was suffocating, a physical weight I couldn't escape. Then came my 19th birthday. Out of the blue, Aunt Rachel called to wish me a happy birthday, and somehow the conversation ended with her inviting me to spend the summer with them in Colorado. I didn't even think about it. I just packed my bags and went. She mentioned something about wanting me to experience real family, which honestly sounded kind of ridiculous at the time, but I said yes anyway because I didn't have anywhere else to go. When I got there, the house was warm. It smelled like cinnamon and lavender, and people actually smiled when they saw me. My uncle hugged me so tightly that it startled me. Ellie, my younger cousin, grabbed my hand and asked if I liked iced coffee or matcha better, like we were already friends. Even their dog barked like he'd been waiting for me. It was the first time I'd felt wanted. I started to let my guard down. I'd help Rachel in the kitchen while she told me stories about my mom when they were teenagers, most of which my mom never told me because we didn't talk about anything that wasn't weather or bills. I'd go on walks with Ellie. She was 15, funny, and sharp, with a streak of pink in her hair and a bookshelf that took up an entire wall in her room. I didn't realize how emotionally starved I was until I started to feel full. But of course, nothing stays perfect, especially not in this family. It started with the slamming, always after dark. The front door would crash open like it owed someone money. Heavy boots, mumbled cursing, then silence, except for the soft thud of a wallet being tossed on the kitchen counter and a fridge opening. The first time it happened, I asked Rachel if everything was okay. She just shook her head and said, "He's home." "Don't worry, just stay in your room, okay?" She didn't have to say his name. I heard it a few minutes later anyway. Someone hissed, "Derek, not tonight." "Please." And then came the crash of glass breaking. Derek was my 28-year-old cousin. I'd never met him before moving in. Rachel never talked about him on the phone, and there were no photos of him in the living room. The only trace of him was a dented door down the hall that stayed locked most of the time. He was tall, unshaven, and walked like the world owed him something. Every night he came home reeking of beer and rage. Sometimes he yelled, sometimes he didn't. But either way, everyone tiptoed around him like he was a wild animal. One wrong move and he'd bite. I hated him immediately, but I didn't understand how deep it went until the day I found the bruises. Uncle Rob had taken his shirt off while fixing the leaky pipe under the sink. I saw the dark, finger-shaped blotches along his ribs, the purple splotch on his shoulder, the fading welt near his spine. "Did you fall?" I asked stupidly, even though I knew he hadn't. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Then quietly, he stood up, wiped his hands on a rag and said, "Come here, I need to show you something." He took me to the garage and locked the door behind us. Then he pulled out his phone and scrolled. Message after message. Threats. Voice recordings. Photos of Rachel with a black eye. One of Ellie crying on the kitchen floor. My stomach churned. "He's broken things in the house. He's broken us," Uncle Rob said, staring at the concrete floor like it might answer his prayers. "We've called the police 4 times. They say unless there's blood and witnesses, there's nothing they can do." My voice barely worked. "What about a restraining order?" "Tried. The judge threw it out. Said Derek doesn't technically live here, no lease, no proof of residence, no way to enforce it, but he knows we're afraid of him. That's all he needs." I couldn't sleep that night, not just because of the banging and the shouting, though there was plenty of that, but because I felt trapped. I'd finally found something like love, something warm and whole, and it was being devoured from the inside by this walking nightmare. I started watching Derek closely. He didn't have a job. He didn't even pretend to. He'd go out around 6 p.m. and come back around 2 a.m., wasted and mean. He'd demand cash from Rachel. "I know you've got something tucked away, Mom. I ain't stupid." He called Ellie names I can't even repeat. He once dumped a plate of food on the floor because the rice was too dry. I didn't understand it. Not until I overheard a conversation between Rachel and Rob while I was pretending to sleep. "What are we supposed to do?" she whispered, her voice tight with tears. "Throw him out and wait for him to come back with a gun?" "He won't stop," Rob said. "Not unless someone stops him." That's when it clicked. Derek was a bully, a predator, but only because he knew no one would challenge him. He thrived on their silence, their fear, and the cops wouldn't help, not unless it happened in public. So I decided to make it public. I didn't tell anyone my plan. They'd never let me go through with it. But I was done watching this family, my family, be destroyed by a man who never grew past throwing tantrums. If the only way to stop him was to light the fuse myself, then fine, I'd be the match. The next afternoon, I waited until Derek stumbled out the front door, same as always. I followed from a distance. He took the usual path, down 3rd Avenue toward the liquor store near the gas station. I waited until we were about halfway down the main street, packed with people and traffic, then stepped out in front of him. He stopped short. "What the hell are you doing?" I smiled. Not a nice one. "Just wondering how it feels to be a 28-year-old leech. Mommy still paying for your beer?" His face turned red. "Back the fuck off." "I mean, it's impressive, really. You've managed to be unemployed, abusive, and a coward. Triple threat." I knew what was coming before he even moved. His fist connected with my face so hard that I hit the sidewalk. The taste of copper filled my mouth. People screamed. Someone shouted, "Hey! Hey, call the cops!" Tires screeched as cars slowed to a crawl. I saw a blur of movement before he kicked me in the ribs. Then, blessedly, sirens. He was still shouting at me when they pulled him off. "You think you won? You think this changes anything?" He barked as they shoved him into the squad car. "You're dead, Beat. You hear me?" I just lay there, blood on my chin, pain ricocheting through my ribs. But I smiled, because for the first time since I got there, Derek didn't look untouchable. He looked scared. They arrested him for assault in broad daylight. Rachel and Rob were horrified when they found out what I'd done, but they also cried. Not just for me, but because finally someone had done something. He was gone, but only for 2 weeks. After Derek attacked me in broad daylight, in front of a dozen witnesses with video footage from 3 different angles, the judge gave him 2 damn weeks in jail. Overcrowding, they said. First-time violent offense. I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Maybe both. Because when that police cruiser took him away, I let myself believe it was over. That the house would be safe. That Rachel could finally breathe. That Ellie could go to school without flinching every time a door slammed. But Derek came back. He showed up on a Tuesday afternoon, freshly released and still reeking of entitlement. He stood on the sidewalk just outside the property line, smiling like nothing had happened. I was on the porch with Uncle Rob when I saw him. "Miss me?" Derek called out, eyes locked on me like I was the only thing in his world. I didn't answer. Rob didn't either. We just went back inside and locked every damn door. That night, Rachel cried while she cooked dinner. Not because Derek was home. He technically wasn't. He couldn't set foot past the gate, but because we all knew he wouldn't stop. And we were right. It started with the stalking. He found out where I worked, a coffee shop on the corner of Main and 12th. My second shift back after the assault, I looked up and there he was, sitting at a table by the window, watching me. Didn't order anything, didn't say a word. Just sat there, hands folded, that same cold smile on his face. My manager asked if I was okay. I lied and said it was just an ex. That night, I filed for a formal restraining order. This time, a judge approved it. An ankle monitor, court mandated. We were told he couldn't come within 200 feet of me or the house. For about 3 days, we exhaled. Ellie even smiled at breakfast again. Rachel started writing poetry. She'd stopped years ago. But I found a notebook open on the kitchen table one morning and my heart swelled. It felt like a thaw. Then everything fell apart. Derek went digital. It started when my boss pulled me into his office. "We need to talk," he said, shutting the door behind him. "Did you create these?" He turned his monitor around. Racist posts, slurs, hateful comments. All under a social media account with my name and my photo. I know this isn't you, my boss said quietly, but the higher-ups don't want controversy. We're gonna have to let you go. I don't remember leaving the building. I just remember walking aimlessly for over an hour, feeling like my skin didn't fit anymore. He'd taken my safety. Now he was taking my identity. When I got home, there was a box on the porch. No return address. Inside, dead flowers, a lighter, and a note. Burn. Bitch! We called the police. They took a report. Said they'd add it to the file. That was the new refrain. Add it to the file. Like they were building a case they didn't intend to use. But Derek didn't stop. Next was the mall. Ellie had begged to go just to feel normal again. Rachel was hesitant, but eventually agreed, on the condition that I go with her. So we went. Ellie wanted bubble tea. I was just glad to see her laugh. Then I saw two men, standing near the fountain, watching us. One of them had a scar above his eyebrow. The other wore a hoodie despite the heat. I didn't recognize them, but they weren't there to shop. They followed us. Not closely, not obviously, but they were there every time we turned, near the shoe store, outside the restroom, by the food court exit. I called the police from the bathroom, but when we emerged, the men were gone. Ellie was pale and quiet the whole ride home. She didn't even drink her tea. That night, Rob checked the security cameras. They were new. We'd installed them right after Derek's first arrest, but when he pulled up the footage, one of the outdoor cams was black. Spray paint. Rachel stared at the screen, lips trembling. He's testing us, she whispered. He wants us to know he can still reach us. Then Rob opened the envelope. It was in the mailbox, no stamp, no name. Inside was a USB drive, just that. I didn't want to plug it in. Every part of me screamed that this was a trap, but Rob insisted on checking it, using an old laptop that wasn't connected to our network. The files inside, hundreds of photos of Ellie, taken through windows, at school, on walks. Some zoomed in so close you could see her freckles, some taken from a distance as if through a scope. Rachel fell to her knees. Ellie ran from the room. I stood frozen, staring at a timestamp on one of the files, 2 days ago. We called the police again. This time, they sent someone immediately. The officer was young, nervous. He promised to escalate it, to assign someone to the case. This is stalking, he said. We might be able to push for felony charges. That night, someone scratched at my bedroom window. I sat up in bed, heart hammering. The scratching stopped. Then came a slow drag, like nails on glass. I didn't move, couldn't. In the morning, we found claw marks on the wood. He wasn't even pretending to be subtle anymore. We fortified the house, reinforced the locks, got motion sensors and floodlights, but it didn't matter, because Derek wasn't playing by rules. He called the security company we'd hired, pretended to be Rob, requested a service update, asked for camera placements. They told him everything. Then he disabled the basement sensor. We found it dangling from its wires, covered in electrical tape. The final straw came when Rachel opened her laptop one afternoon and found her desktop changed. All her poems gone, replaced by a single file. Your home isn't yours. That night, we huddled in the living room, all of us too scared to pretend anymore. Ellie curled up against Rachel, who clutched her like she might disappear. Rob stared at the front door like it might explode open at any moment. I sat on the floor, knees to my chest, listening to the wind through the trees, and wondering how this became our life. Then I had an idea. He's watching us because he thinks we're predictable, I said slowly, so let's stop being predictable. They all looked at me. We fake a trip, pack bags, tell neighbors we're heading to the mountains, but we stay, we hide. And when he comes, we catch him. Catch him how? Rob asked. With everything. Panic buttons, cameras, the cops on standby. We let him walk into a trap of his own making. It was dangerous, risky, but it was the only shot we had left. Rachel nodded. Let's do it. We spent the next 3 days prepping, packing bags we won't use, telling neighbors we'd be out of town, posting fake vacation photos from a dummy account, leaving the porch light off like we were gone. And then, we waited. The night of the trap, we stayed silent, hidden. Ellie and Rachel are in the panic room behind the garage wall, Rob and I in the hall closet, clutching our phones and stun batons, motion sensors armed, panic buttons in hand. Just after 2 a.m., the alarm tripped. We heard the basement window open, footsteps. Rob pressed the panic button, a silent alert. 10 seconds later, I heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance. Derek stepped into the hallway and froze. We stepped out. Rob yelled, "Freeze!" He turned, and that's when I saw it. The bag in his hand, a knife, duct tape, rope, a bottle of chloroform. My knees buckled. He took a step toward me. "You think you've won?" Then the door burst open behind him. Officers, guns drawn, orders shouted. Derek dropped the bag, raised his hands. They took him down hard, cuffed, searched, hauled away screaming, "I'll come back! You hear me? I'll come back!" But he didn't. The court ruled him mentally unfit to stand trial. Ordered him to a high-security psychiatric facility outside Boulder. We were told he'd be heavily medicated, monitored, restricted, that he wouldn't be able to contact us or even receive visitors without court approval. But I didn't believe it. Every night I found myself staring at the front door, listening to the wind as if it might whisper his name. Rachel slept with the lights on. Ellie wouldn't go near the basement. Uncle Rob started sleeping downstairs with a baseball bat propped against the wall. We were safe, technically, but we didn't feel safe. Then, 2 weeks after Derek's institutionalization, Rachel got a text. "You think a locked door can stop me?" No number, no name, just that. The police tracked the number to a prepaid burner phone, but the GPS pinged 3 towns away and the signal disappeared soon after. The detective said it was likely someone trying to scare us. Maybe Derek's friend, maybe just a sick prankster. That night, we went room to room double-checking every lock, every window. We found a broken one in the laundry room. It was cracked open just enough for fingers to slip through. The screen had been sliced clean across. No footprints, no fingerprints, just a faint scent of gasoline on the outside sill. We didn't sleep that night. The next morning, we called the facility. "We don't disclose patient details," the nurse said, monotone, "but I assure you, Derek is still here." It wasn't reassuring, because we knew, somehow, somewhere, he was still reaching us. That afternoon, Ellie came into the kitchen with her laptop, pale and shaking. "Someone hacked my school email," she whispered. "They sent pictures to my classmates, from that USB drive, the ones Derek took." My blood went cold. The school called later that day, asking for a meeting. Ellie didn't want to go. She just sat on the couch, knees hugged to her chest, crying quietly. Rachel didn't say a word. She just held her. And then came the letter. No postage, no envelope, just a folded sheet of paper slipped under our front door. "You're not a family, you're a cage, and every cage has a weak point." That was it. No threats, no name, just that line. Rob read it, then calmly walked to the kitchen. He's watching us. Still, somehow. That night, we heard a soft scratching, just like before. I sprinted to my window and yanked the curtain. Nothing. But in the morning, fresh claw marks. Longer this time. Deep. Rachel stopped writing. Ellie stopped laughing. Rob started sleeping in his truck. I started having dreams, or maybe they were memories, of Derek standing at the foot of my bed, of his breath against the window pane, of a knife on the kitchen counter that hadn't been there the night before. One night, the back camera went dead. Not spray paint this time. Unplugged. Rob checked the footage, just static. Then, a hand reaching into frame. Gloved. The time code read 3:17 a.m. We all gathered in the living room after that. No one wanted to be alone. Rachel sat on the floor, her arms wrapped around Ellie. Rob stood by the window, staring out like a soldier on watch. I finally said what we were all thinking. "He's coming back." "No," Rob said. "He never left." We needed a plan. Something final. A trap. It wasn't just my idea this time. It was everyone's. We were done reacting. Done waiting. "We fake a trip again," I said. "Just like last time. But this time we don't wait for him. We guide him." "What do you mean?" Rachel asked. "We make it easy. We leave a window barely unlocked. We forget to arm one of the motion sensors. We want him to come. We let him think he's winning." Ellie looked terrified, but she nodded. "I'll never let him touch you," Rob said, voice shaking. I swear to God. So we did it. We packed the car, left the lights off upstairs, told neighbors we were going to Utah for a family funeral, even posted an out-of-office sign on the door. We parked the car 2 blocks away and walked back through the forest trail behind the house. We hid. Me, Rob, and Rachel in the panic room, a narrow crawl space behind the old furnace room. Ellie stayed with a friend 2 houses down, safe and surrounded. We had police on standby, panic buttons in every room, cameras rolling, live feed to the detective's laptop. And then, we waited. It happened at 2:49 a.m. a basement window, same one as last time. The alert pinged our phone, silent but immediate. Rob pulled up the feed. There he was, not Derek. Adrian, Derek's best friend from high school, the one who used to crash on their couch during summer breaks. We hadn't seen him in years. He moved with practiced precision, like he knew the layout by heart. He carried a duffel bag. We watched in silence as he walked from room to room, turned off the lights, whispered to himself. We couldn't make out the words, but the rhythm sent chills up my spine. He reached Ellie's room and stopped, just stood there. Then he reached into the bag and pulled out knife, rope, a cloth. Rachel pressed the panic button. Sirens erupted seconds later. Adrian flinched and bolted, but not fast enough. By the time he hit the porch, officers tackled him to the ground. He said you'd be asleep. He said it was supposed to be easy. Derek. The police took Adrian away in cuffs. We followed close behind. At the station, Adrian confessed. Said Derek had been calling him from inside the facility using another patient's phone. Said he sent Adrian money through a fake PayPal account. Said he promised a fresh start if Adrian handled things. He showed them the messages, the photos, the plan. We thought that would be the end. But as we were leaving the station, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. Enjoy your fake little victory? You'll never be safe. I stood there, frozen. Rob looked over my shoulder. It wasn't Adrian's number. It wasn't Derek's either, but it was still him. The court ruled him a continued threat. His psychiatric confinement was extended indefinitely. All outside communication revoked. No more visitors, no more phone access, no unsupervised privileges. The doctor said his fixation was pathological, that he didn't see us as people, only symbols, his family, his enemies, his shame. We went home, and I slept through the night for the first time in over 3 months. Trauma doesn't leave like a thief in the night. It lingers, it echoes. After Adrian's arrest, after the knife, the rope, the chloroform, after the panic and the court hearings, and the silence that followed, we expected some kind of peace to fall over us like a warm blanket. But healing isn't quiet. It's messy. It's jagged. It stings like alcohol poured into wounds you didn't even know you had. The facility cut off all of Derek's communication rights after Adrian's confession. No calls, no letters, no more using other patients as proxies. They also transferred him to a more secure psychiatric wing after staff caught him trying to manipulate another resident into finishing what I started. We were told his commitment would likely be indefinite, that his condition, whatever they called it, was fueled by obsession and delusion more than diagnosable psychosis, that he'd spent years building us up in his mind as the root of his failures. That was the only way he felt in control was through fear. And for a long time, it worked, but not anymore. That realization didn't hit me in a sudden burst of joy. It came in pieces. A day when I didn't flinch at the sound of footsteps behind me. A night when I didn't check the window lock twice. A morning when I made coffee and actually noticed the birds outside instead of scanning the yard for shadows. Ellie came home first. It took some convincing. She had begged to stay with her friend Clara even after it was all over. But one night, she showed up at the door with a duffel bag and said simply, "I don't want him to take this house from me." We cried. All of us. Because she was right. The first thing she did was take down the blackout curtains in her room. Then she bought fairy lights and hung them above her bed like stars. Her friends started visiting again. Laughter came back into the house in bursts, shy at first, then bold, like it had never left. Rachel started leaving her poems around the house, handwritten, folded into coffee mugs or tucked between couch cushions. She called them daily confessions. I found one in the pantry one morning that simply said, "Love that survives terror is the fiercest kind." Rob kept busy, fixing, building, replacing every lock in the house, even though we no longer needed to. I think it gave him peace to take control of something physical, something he could fix. One afternoon, he knocked on my door holding a half-burned wooden birdhouse. "Derek made this in high school," he said. "Used to be proud of it. Thought you might want to help me turn it into kindling." We burned it that night, quietly, together. And me? I tried to reclaim my identity. I got a new job, not at a coffee shop this time, a local bookstore. Quiet. Warm. The owner had read about our story in the paper and offered me a job on the spot. Said, "Anyone who walks through fire to protect their family is someone I want behind my register." It wasn't just about the money, it was about belonging. For the first time, I started seeing this place not as an escape from my old life, but the beginning of a real one. A family. Messy, wounded, patched together with tape and tears. But a family that chose me. There was one more thing, though. One last thread that wouldn't let go. A few weeks after Adrian's sentencing, I got another message. Not from Derek, from his birth mother. Rachel had told me the story once. Derek was adopted, his biological mom had struggled with drugs and mental illness, and Rachel and Rob took him in when he was 6. They loved him, tried to raise him right. But he never fully trusted them, never let go of the idea that they weren't his real family. The message read, "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I read what happened. I'm sorry for what my son has done. I failed him. You didn't. Please know that." I didn't reply, but I didn't block her either. Somehow the apology didn't feel hollow. It just felt final. One afternoon, I was sitting on the porch, legs curled under me, sipping tea, when Ellie came outside and asked, "Do you ever wish you'd never come here?" I looked at her, at the freckles on her cheeks, the bracelet she always wore, the tiny scar on her chin from falling off a bike when she was 10. And I said, "No, not even for a second." She smiled. "Even after everything?" I nodded. "Especially after everything. Because I came here looking for safety and found purpose. I came here fleeing loneliness and found people who would bleed for me. Who did." Derek tried to break us, to isolate us, but all he did was forge something unshakable. That night, I slept with the window open. No claw marks, no nightmares, just stars. And for the first time in months, I felt completely, finally, at home.